It's the Fresh and Friends podcast, and there's a great show coming right up.
Welcome back to another episode of the Fresh and Friends podcast. I'm joined by William Titan Davey, full name treatment, current coach of Gaming Gladiators inside of Oceania.
Yes.
How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
We're going to another podcast inside of the Krakow Airport Lounge, who are very kindly putting us up. Not sponsored. I did pay to get in here, technically. Yeah. But yeah, we are in here recording it. They're being gracious hosts. So thank you for that. Okay, so the topic of conversation on today's podcast is going to be Gaming Gladiators, formerly the Team Bliss roster, because I think there is actually quite a lot of interest around this roster from an international perspective now that we got very used to seeing them on an international stage. And again, this is probably going to start off in a way quite negative. We stopped seeing them after Manchester. Actually, after Esports World Cup. Yeah. So that's what I want to go through with you, is that period of time through stage 2 that ultimately led to the failure to qualify for the 6th Invitational. And obviously, we're just after the 6th Invitational. How's that right now? So stage 2, if we take it back, and we'll go before stage 2, there was a decision made to remove Odah from the roster, which I think I'll be honest, from an outside perspective, caught everybody off guard. So how did that decision come about? What were the circumstances that led to Odah being removed?
So we weren't sure if we would have a league spot actually for stage 2 because we were leaving Bliss. So we weren't sure if Bliss would keep the spot.
Okay.
That's why we brought Tuhan on as a sub originally. So Tuhan was scrimming with us for a couple of weeks and the team gelled brilliantly, to be honest with him. It just naturally fit the playstyle, the roles, etc. Odah was away in holiday in Greece.
Mm-hmm.
He was told to do a couple things here and there, just to sort of
play something with Tuhan as a sub.
We played just practice.
Was it like the gauntlet or something?
No, just practice.
Okay.
So we were just there practicing every day, just sort of chilling.
Yeah.
We were all kind of like just waiting for Odah to come back. As the days ticked on, it was like Tuhan's actually pretty good, to be honest. We were all very surprised by him, quite impressed.
Mm-hmm.
Odah then came back. He was being told to sort of like study a few maps here and there just to pay attention to the strat changes. He didn't do that.
Okay.
I'll be blatantly honest, he just did not do that.
Yeah.
He then, I know, went to Wet and told Wet, Titan didn't give me anything during the break, to which I've shown Wedables, obviously the pictures, or screenshots, etc., going, yeah, I did. So that's issue number 1. Issue number 2 is then he came back and he was so rusty. I mean, it's as expected. He took like a 2-week break or so. Like,
this was post Esports World Cup.
Yeah.
Pre-stage 2.
Correct.
So, what, August, September time?
Yep.
Okay.
Our thought process was the fact that we were going to need somebody to qualify for the league with. So, like, okay, we'll bring in Tuhan, destroy one of our closest rivals as well at the same time, Antic, who's the team that we played to get to the EWC Grand Final.
Yeah.
That we won against in Grand Final.
Yeah.
Tuhan dropped like 40 kills in 2 maps against us. We were like, right, let's give him a test. And mechanically, he can shoot like crazy, that kid, to be fair.
Okay.
So we brought him in.
Yep.
And we were like, actually, I should say, like, Odah came back. We tried a day as well where we had Fisho not playing and Odah instead from hard support. Tried that balance. And again, it just didn't work. Odah didn't seem to be comfortable on the roles. It looked wrong from a coaching staff perspective. I think we only did like a day on that as well because it was just so bad instantly. Okay. Fisho at the time as well was playing very well on the role and he was also helping. But we were also slowly transitioning from Fisho being the IGL to Wedables. So with Fisho still being there, it gave a support arm for Wet that didn't exist otherwise, which is why the sort of change was made as it was. And that was kind of then the reasoning behind everything. It just clicked better, the team. And also, to be fair, when we had a conversation about it, it was, this change makes sense in a sense.
Yeah.
To be honest. What people don't realise, and I'm going to expose now, is the behind the scenes turmoil that actually existed within the teams. It was just different segments and different groups in that team. And people clashed. I remember when we lost in EWC, I had one-on-ones with everybody where I gave them an open sort of, door policy of say what you want. And through that, I just realised that the team was completely fractured. I think there's like 2 or 3 of them wanted to retire post-SI earlier in the year. Yeah, they were contemplating retiring after Manchester as well. I mean, people were not in the right state of mind to take that next step. Some people wanted to do it part-time. Some people wanted to go harder. Some people wanted to go softer. And it was like, you need to find a middle ground.
So
you need to try to find something that works.
So ultimately, the team was, from the way you understand it, trying to pull itself in all these different directions.
The team
there was individual silos of maybe one person, maybe a couple of people that were thinking in different ways.
The team was fractured, is the way I can put it. It was blatantly, obviously fractured. I recognised it after I joined, after literally 2 weeks when I joined, I had a conversation with like 3 of the guys, and they all said to me, "Oh yeah, so you got this problem, you got this problem, you got this problem, this issue, this issue, this issue, this issue." And I'm like, I wish you'd told me this before I bloody joined.
And that's where this comes down to the internal versus the external as well, because like, again, you was inside the scene, but you didn't know this from the team. And it's very easy to draw results and go, hey, they've not played this map well, or they've not played well, or this guy's not put up numbers. But fundamentally, if this collective of 5 players can't see eye to eye on what are key things, you can only paper over that for so long.
Well, this is the thing. And they were winning in OS because nobody else in OS was able to elevate themselves to a good standard, and nobody else was sort of able to do the extra hard work or understand what it is to build a winning formula. Odah ended up going to Chiefs and made it a winning formula.
To be fair to them.
But I think also a big factor of that is Jigsaw. If you take away Jigsaw from that team, I'd like to see how well they do, because when we played them without Jigsaw, it was quite comfortable.
That was a very interesting team to get put together around.
Let's just say the politics behind that team
roster,
getting put together was very interesting.
Okay, so if I'm getting this correct, Odah was removed ultimately. You already had a fractured team.
Yeah.
You felt that he didn't do enough whilst he was away on his break, or anything whilst he was away on his break. When he came back, it was rusty. And because ultimately, this is just one thing that I want to double sense check is, had you have known that you had the spot, so had you have stayed with Team Bliss without going to Gaming Gladiators, or had you had assurances that you had the spot, would Odah have just gone on holiday and you wouldn't have considered Tuhan?
Yeah.
So it's very circumstantial that you thought you had to qualify, therefore Tuhan came in as a, if we need to qualify.
We knew that we weren't going to have to qualify about a week before the qualifiers, I think it was, that we got the certainty.
But you were preparing for the...
But we were already scrimming with Tuhan,
and
so
that's
we might as well just keep going.
Okay, fine. So it's kind of circumstantial, some behaviour, and the fact that you had a fractured team, that leads to Odah getting removed, which, again, I will say this from my point of view, as I'm quite invested in the OS League, because being honest, I love the league, I love the talent, I think it's great, and I watch OS as I'm preparing for UL during the day. For my broadcast, it's like my warm-up. I absolutely love it. OS never takes itself too seriously.
Yes.
And I think that's a massive, massive, like, it's great because it makes the league fun, it makes it entertaining. I love it. At the same time, it probably hinders the league from a professionalism point of view. In Worldwide Siege, hard decisions get made and people get cut and everything else. And, we've both experienced being cut from G2, for example, ultimately, and we can still move on. In OS, I think that's probably the first time that really a big player in Odah, because he was a big player for the team, has been cut, and it caused clearly a lot of drama. Still does. It caused a lot of drama. I think that's where OS hasn't necessarily been through that maturity curve, and it's probably at the start of that journey from them as a league perspective. Okay, so that's enough on Odah. He's gone. Tuhan comes in. You play stage 2, and ultimately this is now the first, is it the first stage or the second stage where playoffs are in place to qualify for the major? Second stage. So it's not just league position like it was previously. Did you finish first in the league? You finished first in the league. You beat the, what are they called, Chiefs? You beat Chiefs. The rest of the teams inside of OS did make progress, in fairness, and I'll say this from an outside perspective, gave you some quite competitive games. Certainly, there was I want to say, was it a Consulate that was quite far behind?
First game day, 8-7, Supernova.
Supernova, Odium? Okay.
That was second game. It would have been Man, LFO.
Man, LFO, Chef Jeff, and the...
Skyscraper 7-5, which was a map that we'd only scrimmed at the start of that week. We literally scrimmed it 2 times before that, just because we were like, well, just whatever.
So OS have made improvements, and I think that is very fair to say. I think it's got a lot more competitive than it previously was. And then you get to the playoffs, and ultimately lose to Chiefs, I would say, in a lot of circumstances that you probably feel still quite aggrieved by. Yes. Without saying, again, too much, because it's like trying to work out which can we're going to open here. But I think there was technical issues,
ruling issues
that were ruled on with, let's say, subjective judgment calls. It felt like...
I'll say the words so you don't get in trouble.
Okay.
People said things, then rules changed mid-game. And those people were not held accountable, still are not held accountable, and should be held accountable. Simple.
Aside from that, obviously you did lose the game, but you were playing in circumstances that were not the best because people get emotional, can get riled up.
Obviously.
And I can't imagine what the behind the scenes of that is. Chiefs did beat you fair and square
Yep.
on the day, but the circumstances surrounding that were not the best. This will be the first event that this core of players has not qualified for in
Yep.
a long time.
Correct.
We're talking, 18 months? Maybe longer?
Yeah, about 18 months, just over.
Because they played SI, and it was probably SI 23 that was the one they didn't go to.
That's because they didn't exist.
So, okay, so then how did they react to that?
Shock, I think, but to be honest, the circumstances in which everything happened was very overwhelming for everybody. And the guys, then I think it was like the next day had to get on a flight to go to Melbourne to do some PAX event there.
Oh, I see.
As a team, which was hard, to be honest.
Because they probably just needed some time.
So the guys went together. It kind of fixed some issues, like in relationships, also fractured considerably in other areas. So those cracks that I spoke about got bigger. It was very noticeable post that like small mini LAN event that they had for like a whole weekend together, kind of as a team.
Which you didn't attend, obviously, because it's a weekend event in Australia. Yeah,
pointless. Then then the guy, we all sat down, had a talk about, the incident, basically. We talked about how do we go forward from here. We generally, gathered an approach, and we said, right, we're just going to hit hard for, actually, no, what was it? No, we then chose to watch the major together.
Okay.
So the Aussies were up until, oh my God, o'clock, same as myself, just watching these, like, the major games.
Yeah, because time zone, that's 6 hours. It's the same time difference, isn't it? Just either way.
Yeah. So
6 hours in front for you, 6 hours behind for them.
So we knew that we had a small chance going into the major. And I think it was on day 1. After phase 1, our chances were like 67% or something like that.
Yeah, I remember this because a load of results had to go your way.
And then
they started looking like they were going.
And I think we hit a high of like 80-90% at one point.
Yeah.
And because it was like, there were, of the 8 spots, 5 teams had to qualify to go to the main stage. And it was like, the one team that we were like almost banking on not making it was Falcons.
Falcons, yeah.
And then they made it.
And then there was...
Same thing with W7M. They had to go on a big run. Did it.
They did.
And VP as well. And they made it. So it's just like everything just...
That was crazy considering. Falcons, maybe not that much of a surprise, but I will say at an international level, probably overperformed in Montreal. W7M, not really surprised. They've been at EWC final.
I mean, they ended up winning the event, so I'm fine with that.
They are a good team. VP also actually maybe a surprise because their stage 2 in Europe was abysmal.
I mean, they made it through the LCQ.
No,
they made it through regular
scraped playoffs at the mercy of...
Yeah.
Can't remember who. Scraped playoffs.
Yeah, that was it.
They were terrible in stage 2 in Europe.
Yeah.
Shouldn't, being honest, really have qualified for the major and then had a good run at the major.
Yeah.
So yeah, you end up being in the BDS position of last year of the 17th place team on points in the world. Strong Manchester, top 2 in your league, didn't go to the major, obviously, and just missed out. But you're obviously sat there watching the major together as a team, knowing that your fate for Six Invitational in Boston is ultimately in the hands of 30, 40 other, 50 other players.
I can't remember what
teams.
Team it was. There was one game that we were so sure of it. It was whoever Sonics were playing. Liquid. Sonics played Liquid.
Was Sonics one of the teams
that needed to get to top 8?
Right.
And we were like, that's the game. That'll be the game that will send us to
cements us.
And we all, I remember there was like 3 or 4 of us watching it.
Yeah. There's potentially like 4 a.m., 3 a.m.
We had like our friends from all over the place. We had extra Aussies in there. We had a couple of EU guys in there. Everybody was watching it. Everybody was on the edge of their seat. First round Liquid 5v2, they lose it. Then it's like a 4v1, they lose. 5v2, 5v3, 5v2, I think it was.
Oh, man.
4v2.
Okay.
And we watched that, and we just sat there going, no fucking way. At that point, I hated Team Liquid. I still do for this.
Yeah, you don't want Nesco Pilot to ever win anything.
No, absolutely.
Okay, fine. So, yeah, I suppose let's carry on the timeline then. So, SI is now denied.
Yep.
Apart from LCQ.
Yep.
So, what does the time period of this look like? Because we're talking about majors in November, end of November. We're now looking at December, into January? What
So-
happens there?
We still didn't know when SI quals were, so
Yeah.
we didn't know if they were January, December, whenever. So we didn't know if they were online total. We were telling the org we might need to go move to like Indo or something like that.
Because actually how did it work for APAC? There was a LAN.
Each region played, so Japan, Korea,
sub-qual.
Southeast Asia played like their own little qualifier,
Yeah.
same as Australia, and then all those teams went to a LAN event here in Oz.
Yeah. Changed at last minute.
Singapore meant to be, and then it got changed to Australia last minute. It wasn't like a proper LAN, it was like online gameplay, but they just set them up in like a building somewhere in Australia.
It's all on the same ping.
Yeah,
So it's even for everybody.
correct.
Which I think is a fair enough compromise.
Well, yeah, it's
being honest.
close enough. Yeah, they moved
Yeah.
them somewhere East Coast. Everybody was like 9 ping from like those guys.
Yeah.
So it's fine gameplay wise.
Oh, because your boys stayed at home because they were Australian.
No, yeah, so we didn't actually get to that phase. That was the Chiefs guys that
Sorry,
played that.
Chiefs stayed at home.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Chiefs stayed at home, yeah. But before that, like the build up to it, we had the APAC Cup as well, which we qualified for. Which, note to tournament organisers, if you're a third party TO, please do not put a grand final qualifier about 3 days before a major qualifier match. Thank you very much.
Would the APAC, whoever held that, would they have known that? Presumably, maybe. I
Yes,
don't
they
know.
would have
Okay.
known the day.
Okay.
So at the APAC Cup, we ended up getting put against what was the X-Bleed lineup. I think they'd just gone Augless at that point.
August, yes.
8-7, 8-7 were the results.
Yeah. Clubhouse and Cafe.
Yep. 6-3 up on Clubhouse, 6-4 up on Cafe we were. Both times choked it.
Okay.
And I remember because we did a boot camp in Japan for like a few days. Like
This
4
was
days.
in Tokyo.
In Tokyo, yep. Great facility at the Reject place. Shout out to them. But the results were just brilliant from us. We
Mhm.
demolished everybody. We were looking so good in boot camp, in my opinion. I genuinely was so confident going into that cup and then also going into the LCQs.
So this is, because obviously you've made changes like
Mhm.
since all of this. This is the same team. Tuhan and the remaining, so it's Sage, Brendo, Fisho,
Wearables.
Wet, Tuhan. Okay, just checking. At that point, how were you feeling about the cracks in the team that had appeared?
They were there, but I was trying to paper over them.
Are you thinking that the momentum is kind of doing that?
Correct.
You're getting that short tempo.
We played against Bleed. That first map, Clubhouse 6-3. I was
Yeah.
like, yes. And I just watched the team plus like, fuck. Okay, we go again. Cafe, brilliant map. We were so good at it. 6-4 up. All right, I'll take this. We're playing shit, but we're winning match point. This is good. Leader drops 17 on us. We lose, and I'm just like, we've just got first round of the APAC Cup.
Jake's got ability.
So I was like, all right, fair dues. 8-7, 8-7, 2 max OT games.
Yep.
Right. It's not the end of the world if you look at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is a disappointing result, obviously, especially considering the prep that we did, etc.
And being honest, from an outside perspective, you were probably still the favourites for that.
Yeah.
Obviously, Kag are going to put consistent opposition, Fearex at that point as well, especially with Nova.
Yeah, I mean, this was the
An
big
August roster with the bleed and the issues they had, Reaps not playing, Noodles subbing in. Like,
We should have won. Agreed. No, we should have won. And the thing is, like, we were in the winning positions to take that game comfortably.
yeah.
And I think that was the loss. There was a knock-on effect of the grand final loss to Chiefs in stage 2.
yeah.
And I think this is where people don't realize like how hard the guys took the loss to Chiefs in a
Yeah.
sense. And there was that. What eventually created a mental block, to be honest, in my opinion.
What, a mental block against the Chiefs specifically?
I think it was partly against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But it was just sort of also like in those high pressure moments, they needed to get over the line. It was very hard for them as like a core to be able to get over that sort of like, oh God moment in a sense. There were so many nerves.
Which happens to a lot of teams.
No, it does happen to a lot of teams. And the issue is like, they thought they'd figured it out at SI.
Yeah.
Then Manchester came along. They had the same issue there where they crumbled under the pressure.
Yeah.
EWC was a bit inconsistent for us. Stage 2, the whole regular stage, was the best performance the team had since Stage 1 2023 in Osh.
Okay.
So it was a brilliant performance from the team, bar the first play day where we went some 8-7 against Supernova.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had semi-final, didn't drop a map. So we didn't drop a map for basically all the way up until the grand final.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then obviously that then hits you hard like a brick wall.
Yeah.
That effect went into the APAC
The
Cup.
loss, the circumstance
Then
takes you into that.
had the APAC Cups sort of like loss.
Yeah.
There was some, I'll put it, internal struggle. I ended up basically getting benched for the SI quals, which nobody knows about because it wasn't made public until now. So I wasn't actually like actively working with the team. It was very much sort of like just I existed kind of, but I was just on the bench pretty much.
So SI quals, this is December leading into January. Essentially, you're still with the org, you're on your bench, whatever.
Fisho's in charge of the team.
And Fisho takes control of the team as the IGL at the time.
Yep.
Okay.
He takes control of the team. They win the first game against some crap team, what are they called? The Requirements. God knows who they are. We then play the Chiefs, and then first map was an 8-7 loss against Lair.
Another close one.
Another close one, and then that kind of led into the bang moment, sort of, for the guys, where they then played Consulate, and this whole veto, I was listening to on the VOD, because I still had access to VODs to listen to the guys, was a mess. An absolute, to politely put, shit show. Because people were, be honest, I want to call him out, Fisho banned the wrong maps compared to what the guys wanted to play, the rest of the team, and picked the other maps. So because of that, the guys sort of went into that game with, again, instantly just like, oh, what are we playing kind of thing.
And then you're playing, or they're playing, I suppose not your, because you wasn't in the team at that point. They're playing Chiefs. But they'd lost the stage to yeah, okay, I see how that compounds. And then Supernova off stream. It wasn't streamed at all.
8-7 on Labs we lost. Again.
Yeah.
And then 7-5 on Bank.
2 close maps. This is not a team that you're ever used to losing to. Well,
Correct.
I couldn't say that very well. Supernova, let's just double confirm. Pinku, Quixie, Josh, President, Babin says players that have been in and around OS that have played a lot of OS Pro League,
but they're not
an internationally recognized player realistically, unless you're watching OS.
No, exactly. And it was at that moment that, I mean, it just kind of like imploded. Like the team just, it properly fractured.
This is where the cracks are now wide open.
It's impossible to hide it, Everything has gone to shit, basically. The guys had a big conversation where there was a talk about what to do with me. What future they wanted to do. And so I was sort of told, right, look, we want to bring you back. We're changing this guy. We're changing Fisho.
That was a team decision to remove Fisho.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to think if I should say this next part.
I can cut it out, being blunt.
No, I'm just thinking. No, I'll say it anyway. Fish big thing, and one of the reasons I think he ended up getting removed was he didn't want me to be on the team anymore. He wanted me to be completely removed from the team.
So Fisho and you, I suppose that fundamentally is a crack if he didn't want you there.
Correct. We saw the game very, very differently. And I think he also didn't like the fact that I made Wedables IGL because his style of calling was a lot more
I was about to say,
aligned.
Can you elaborate specifically on...
It's just the style of calling. Fisho is like, the way I can put it is like a VP style guy.
Like somewhat rigid, here's the plan.
Yeah. Rinse, repeat 1,000 times.
Default?
Very default, yeah.
Okay.
Just rinse, repeat 1,000 times until you just autopilot into it.
Yep.
Whereas my style is a lot more flexible, hybrid. I mean, a la Brazil.
Read the game.
Correct, yeah. So Wedables was something that was a little bit better at sort of just like calling things on the fly, calling things with play, but it was teaching him to be an IGL, etc. At this point, we kind of then go all in, right, Wet, your IGL, yeah? So the team had made that decision.
Yeah.
We bring in Juicy, who knew that it was only realistically going to be probably for like that short period of time, just like that one-off season tournament. It was called the Gauntlet, I think it was. I can't remember who we played in the first game. CS, I think it was. We smashed them. And then we go into the grand final against Chiefs. We lose the first map, 7-3, 7-4. I think. It was on Bank. We then play Cafe. We win Cafe. Yeah, we did. So, no. We played Lycus Empire.
6 targets.
6 targets, that's it. And we smashed both of those so far.
Yeah, 7-5, 7-2.
And 7-3, 7. Yeah, that was it. And then we played Chiefs. Yeah. 7-3 loss on Bank. I remember that.
Yep.
So many thrown rounds. Consistently man advantages being lost or just executes just being fumbled. I remember we lost a 4v2 defense on lockers where somehow they snuck down the plant with like 5 seconds to go. Cafe, we win 7-4. We're not playing great, but we knew that the Chiefs would just be terrible at it and we would just be so much better. We win it even playing poorly. Clubhouse.
7-0.
We'd practiced it all throughout November, December. Go into club. Smash. opening death every round. I think every round was like a 3v5, which was terrible. And then Border was just same situation, just nobody could stay alive. And the kind of like culmination of what happened at SI Quals, which was certain players crumbling under the pressure. Same thing passed over into the grand final here against Chiefs. And at that point, it was like, right, what do we do? I remember at the 7-0 loss, I got a DM off the CEO saying, this is just not good enough. And I'm like, nope, I agree. I said to him, we agreed, there needs to be big changes.
Okay. So let's go into those changes, because I think it's fair to say you've absolutely rocked the world of O's. You've made the decision that you said Juicy was probably only temporary to fill for the Fisho guy leaving, get a body in there. Juicy's a good player.
I would like to say thank you to Dean, to Mr. Juicy. We appreciate him coming in. That was very helpful for us.
You decided that actually you're now making huge changes, and the Liquipedia page as of right now isn't even factually correct.
Yeah.
Because this podcast is going to go out after all of these changes are announced, so we can talk about it quite happily. Tuhan is leaving from the playing staff. Tuhan is leaving.
Yep.
Juicy is now left, and can't remember which one.
Sage on is now
Sage is now
operations.
he's now the manager.
Yep.
He's not going to be a player. That leaves you, and also Golden and Mingran have both left
departed.
on the coaching staff. From the existing, I said Bliss roster that you inherited, is Wetables, Brendo.
Yep.
And then yourself, obviously, having joined it. That leaves 3 playing spots.
Yes. Originally, it wasn't meant to be 3 changes.
Okay.
It was meant to be 2. We're just looking to add 2 international players into it.
Okay.
A long conversation was had. Sejon floated the idea to me once in Japan about him stepping down from playing. He then floated...
If I can ask this again,
Go
can
ahead.
I edit it out? Was he one of the players when you said previously players had considered retiring? Was he one of those?
He was a player that had considered
Okay.
retiring.
So he'd already had these thoughts. Team's gone a little bit downhill, and he wants to get into the idea of going into a support staff role. Okay.
I mean, Australia's also quite expensive, so for Sejon where he lives, it's also easier for him to get like another job as well at the same time. So
Yeah.
trying to do full-time playing, it's a bit hard, etc.
Gotcha.
We then, obviously, we would then discuss things, and, the organisation then goes, okay, is that possible? And I go, maybe. I can maybe try and get 3 EU players. Because one of the issues that I always had was trying to convince people to fly to the other side of the world to compete, because it's not like you're flying to NA, and it's a 5-hour flight there and back. It's not like you're moving somewhere else in Europe.
This is like 20, 30 hour flying.
Yeah. Loads of people have girlfriends, family, etc., young kids. You're asking them literally to move their lives to the other side of the world.
So you've signed 3 international players. We will get onto that. If I can ask first and foremost, because this is what's causing, I would say, some of the reaction, is that you're making the team an international core. Is there a reason that you didn't consider those players specifically, or wider APAC players that would speak English?
So
it's like the Southeast Asian players.
So we did consider a couple of APAC players. So
Yeah.
players like Coben, for example, we asked, he turned us down.
Because previously when you was on Gaming Gladiators, you had an English-speaking roster from Southeast Asia?
It's an Indo-English speaking roster.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So where I had like Hoban, for example,
Yeah.
who's now on Bleed. So Hoban was somebody we asked. He said no to us, basically. He said he was happy with his current team.
Yeah.
We also tried other players like Turd, for example, who'd be recently dropped from Bleed. We tried Cairo from Chiefs, who was actually quite impressive, to be honest.
Yep.
We also had Hunter and Scars that we trialed from like the X-Man LFO roster. A big shout out to both of them, Hunter especially. I mean, incredible the work that he's done. And these players are players that was kind of like, we considered very strongly.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day is when we were presented with the options of these players or the guys that we're getting now, these international players, some of which have actual LAN experience, international events, others who just have a lot of European experience, EUL experience now at this point.
Which is fair to say is superior.
Yeah.
Like, that is absolutely no disrespect to us.
And players that fit the roles exactly as we needed them in the team. It seemed nonsensical considering they were also open with a little nudge in certain cases of specific players to get themselves over to Australia.
Okay, fine. Because I think that is worth saying, and it's very, very important context that this isn't just a, hey, I'm an EU coach, I'm bringing EU players.
Yeah.
And, probably was not the plan at all to begin
No,
with.
indeed. I mean, players like Hunter, for example, if
Yeah.
we didn't have the options of the EU players,
They
would be picked up without a second.
Okay.
Cairo also would have been considered. Same
Yeah.
as Scar. Like, these players are, I mean, I keep reiterating Hunter. Very underrated IGL. Nobody will ever see him. We trialed him for like 3 days in a row. I was impressed by Tuhan when he just came in to sub for us. Hunter came in under the pressure of a trial, and the performance that guy put up was genuinely one of the best trial performances I've ever seen.
Okay, so ultimately you went through the due process of testing out local APAC talent. I think, this has been I'll be honest, this APAC people will, and this is me saying this, is not you saying this, APAC people as a region will get upset. I know the Koreans are upset, the Brazilian team going into Korea.
Yep.
There's certain people upset with imports. Speaking with Fabian, especially about the Korean talent pool, there's not a lot of talent there. Similarly, it sounds like, and especially with the fact that you had a fragmented team with some of the top OS players, it's not like you can go back to Odah and be like, hey, come back.
Yeah.
If the talent pool isn't there as well, because like you're saying, there are clearly some talented OS players and English-speaking APAC players available, in the light of this transfer window being the most fluid transfer window ever, it almost seems silly not to just give yourselves the best competitive chance possible.
In a nutshell. I mean, also, just touching on the Odah point, we actually tried to sign Odah and Jigsaw during the off-season. The idea was to keep a 5-man Aussie core. Organisations couldn't get to an agreement, is all I'll say.
Okay, fine. So we've now made a decision as Gaming Gladiators to go international.
Yes.
That's exciting. And you're looking specifically at EU players.
Yes. The idea, so the org has a HQ in Lisbon, bootcamp facility. The idea being that we would basically be able to, if we had a majority European roster, fly the Aussies over.
Yep.
Stay in Europe for off-season period, for however long we want to basically be there for. And then have the European guys scrim from home.
Yep.
And then when we want to, we can just fly everybody down for like a short boot camp, basically.
Yeah, so, I mean, timeline-wise, GG, unfortunately, not a partner organisation. I
Just missed out.
was going to say, from my external perspective, I presume due to a timing reason. So you won't be in Rio.
No.
The first time that you will compete, timeline-wise now we're in March. The first time you will compete is June, which will be OS
Stage 1.
Stage 1, however APAC looks.
Yeah.
Can't remember these days. It feeds all up into eventually an APAC finals.
Yeah.
So March, April, May, however long you guys decide to do it, because I'm presuming you're on a bit of a time off now, you've just got the roster signed. OSKA's going to come to Europe.
Yep.
Which I think, again from an outside perspective, your quality of scrims and your frequency of scrims goes through the roof.
Indeed.
Because this big thing you hear out of APAC teams, can't get a scrim quality.
Yep.
SG Talon are really upset now. They've lost the scrim.
OS in itself is really hard to find practice in and to scrim in. So that's a real serious difficulty.
And you're now quite happily going to be getting scrims against G2, against BDS, against Verse Pro.
I'm not going to hide it. That was, that's
against
the draw.
Falcons,
Yep.
against Wolves, against...
Yep.
There's some seriously good teams. So as much as OS and APAC community might not like it, this might be one of the better shots that they have at having a successful team.
Yeah.
Because one of the reasons OG Fnatic were so good was they were G2's scrim partner for so many events.
Yep.
And they would sit there. I spoke about it with Fabian in the long form interview I did. I think he said something like 20 rounds in a row of bar stage specifically on Clubhouse for G2.
Yep.
But the privilege of that is they got to practice G2 as much as they wanted to learn as much,
Yep.
which is similar to what you guys are going to get, because you're going to see, and again, nobody's going to be caring about hiding strats to you guys.
Exactly.
That does happen in scrims.
Yeah.
In EU, you've operated in EU, I've operated in EU. Teams will still scrim each other in Europe, but they will hold back a level. They're not going to do that with you guys because you're no threat to them until a major, which is in November.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Nobody will blink an eye at us, basically.
So your scrum quality improves. You take that back and apply that to OS, and in theory, your level improves. So the theory behind it is, in my opinion, sound, as much as people may or may not like it. It's all within the rules. It's all fine. And what your goal is ultimately to bring success to the organization and to the team. Unfortunately, it's just not being done. And I'm thinking maybe in an ideal world, people would like to see a majority roster that is APAC. But
that was my original goal as well.
And that was your original goal, but it's transpired that the best opportunity isn't that. Okay, fine. So let's go into the free players then. You have signed Leighton.
Yes.
Croxon.
Yes.
Both played with Wild in Europe, and I think actually were pleasantly surprising.
Yeah.
But Leighton and Croxton, I think nobody had any expectations for Wild during stage 2. Both of those players, I think, pleasantly surprised, with Leighton kind of being the IGL nobody really knew. He had a very strong individual performance, and Wild surprised on a team basis. And as such, I think Leighton takes a lot of that praise as the IGL. Croc, I think everybody kind of knew Croc in Tier 2, Tier 3 Europe. You'll know this as well. But then actually he proved himself at a Tier 1 level.
Yep.
And then the third player that you've took is Creeds. Now,
Yep.
me and you know Creeds inside out, Jihu days, whatever. We're literally, and that makes, it's not a surprise for me because I'm Creeds' biggest super fan, but you are as well. Very experienced player at this point, despite having his rookie year last year.
Indeed.
Played
Manchester
Major
EWC.
Esports World Cup. Arguably should have gone to Six Invitational. I will say that ITB team that was looking at SI quals was looking very good and ultimately shit the bed on one day and didn't go to SI.
He's also got multiple land coming up as well.
Land coming up. Experienced player, despite the fact that... relevant experience at a high level. And maybe hasn't been in the best form of his life, the recent history, but is still a good player.
Indeed. And I mean, with that as well, he played on not his natural role. He played a hard first entry role.
When he's more of a kind of flex
kind of player. Exactly. So why did I get each player?
Yeah.
If we go one by one. So let's talk about Leighton first.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, Leighton obviously got a lot of praise at Wild, and I did for about 4 weeks or so during the off season. I was with Inter Miami and I helped them basically just go through a brilliant name, I know.
I loved it.
We just obviously the August team with the 3 core of the ex-Wild team with Leighton, Croxton, Freck. And in that I was able to actually see how Leighton operated, how he saw the game, but also something like Croxton, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And Croxton pressed the hell out of me.
And that team was kind of...
It was just a team from Bob.
Did they play SI quals as Wild?
Yeah.
But they sucked.
They had Jaxu and somebody else.
That was it, yes. Not Sloth? Was it Sloth?
No, somebody else.
All right, whatever. Okay,
somebody
fine.
should.
And then you saw them for Inter Miami for the multi-quals. Didn't end up qualifying.
No.
But
I saw what I wanted to from the 2 players that I've taken from there, basically.
Okay.
Leighton being a guy that can help with ideas, likes to work a lot in the game.
Will he be the IGL or will it remain as well?
It will be wet primary IGL.
Yep.
But Leighton will be sort of secondary co-IGL.
So it's not just on one.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. So that's the idea. Plus, they both see the game in a very similar way.
Yeah.
Which also helps a lot. And again, similar sort of mindsets in terms of how everything is. Leighton's IGL comes from me teaching him at Jihu. Wedables' IGL comes from me teaching him on GG.
So they're going to be your 2 backline players?
In a nutshell.
It's a strong backline.
I mean, Leighton had some second, third most clutches in the year last year.
And Wet's proven at an international level.
Wet is incredible. Now we'll go Croxton.
Okay.
I wanted a hard entry.
Yeah.
Somebody similar to what Suhan was last stage, but with just the added ego, the added confidence, and to be honest, there's no slight on Suhan, he is mechanically absolutely insane, but the extra X factor in terms of frontline superpower. Croxton was a top 10 rated EU. He had some of the best entry stats as well, going +10 last stage. He was brilliant, actually. Very underrated. Nobody looked at him, either in EU.
No.
And it's because people don't know the behind the scenes of how he operates. People see him from an external perspective and think he's just a bit dull, basically. Just, he runs at teams, he runs at people.
A bit of a mindless frogger.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think a lot of people used to think that about Doki as well when he first started into the scene. And I'm going to use him as the comparison. If I think take it that way, Croxton is a very raw version of Doki, pretty much. And that's something that, for me, I can see how I can sort of channel that and make it better. Croxton's own individual ability is just incredible. And his flexibility of operators as well. As a hard entry who understands how to play a hard entry role.
Yeah. So you're not going to get any situations where there's nobody going in. He will just... He'll do it.
It does good as well for somebody like Brendo, who's not then has to force to be overly aggressive, or it has to doubt whether his man next to him is going to go push forward and things like that.
So Brendo's in that second slot?
Second entry, correct, yep. And then last slot, Creeds. Mr. Charlie Man himself.
And it's worth saying, going away from the hard entry into a lurk flex role.
Yeah.
Which is maybe more natural for him. It's what you had him on at G2. Obviously, Kangaroo Kenny put him on a first entry, which he did well.
Yeah, he did all right.
But you're going to put him back on his natural role.
Yeah, it's what Charlie's best at, gap spotting, to be honest. He is brilliant at reading rounds, reading the opportunities in the moments, and Charlie, having seen Charlie develop over the year, having worked with him when he was at Jihu, seeing what he can do, I know the kid's potential. I mean, we both know, right? And the moment the opportunity was there, I mean, he was the hardest one to encourage to get over.
Well, he loves Australia.
There was some serious nudging, and at a certain point, I basically just threw him over the rope. Pretty much just told him he had to come.
I mean,
but he is that extra something, and that was the only reason players like Sejon, for example, isn't playing. For example, because when you have the choice between getting Sejon, who is a very, very good player in himself, or Charlie, it becomes a hard conversation, but it becomes a conversation of logical. And that's the reality of it. And Charlie is just somebody you can never turn your eye away, in my opinion. But Europe, for some odd reason, bugger all of you gave him a chance. I think like 1 or 2 teams gave him a chance. That's it.
It's kind of hard because Europe's we're bang in the middle of the transfer window. We look at the 5 partner orgs, and you're looking at G2 who are not making changes.
Yep.
You're looking at BDS who is to be announced.
Yep.
At this moment in time, it's widely expected that will be the Wolves core with a couple more in. Okay, maybe you could have gone there if they go international speaking, but apparently it's not.
Think it is.
Yeah, no, it is international speaking, but apparently,
they
didn't consider him for whatever reason. Fnatic, who Creed has trialled with a couple of times before, I don't think I'm leaking. I probably am leaking, but I don't think anybody's going to care.
Yeah.
Creed has had a couple of Fnatic trials. The foot doesn't fit the shoe or whatever. It's just not quite worked out both times for either party.
Yep.
Falcons, who are widely rumoured to be picking up the full BDS roster, and the last partner team, Secret,
who did trial him.
Yeah.
They gave him 1 trial.
Okay.
On June's role, when June was away, doing the tier 2 LAN in Kettering. So it wasn't even a fair trial.
Okay, right, fine. I mean, I could have seen Creed on, but and then going past that, you're looking at French-speaking rosters and Ents and.
I mean, it's all just a mess.
Falcons, and in terms of pure English-speaking rosters, they're not too much past that. Realistically, for me, it felt like the only viable option for him would have been Secret, and it would have been personally for me. Would have been nice to see Adrian and Creed back together.
Yeah.
It's not happened, so I'm glad. And I think it's probably quite sensible from his perspective as well, because it's seemingly wild to have disbanded that. Okay then, so interesting roster. I hope it goes well. So you will scrim 2-3 months in Europe.
Yeah, we're currently...
However long that looks.
The plan is like just over, I think it's like 5 weeks or so in Europe. Is like, with us when they'll send all the Aussie over. We're still going to scrim before that with the guys in Europe and Australia.
Yeah.
Provided, hello teams, quick shout out here. If you're a European team or a Southeast Asian team and would like to scrim on UAE servers, please let me know. We will be using those. Also, if you're a MENA team, I'll also scrim you. Basically, just give me that server. Cheers, guys. At weird ungodly hours.
There we go. Okay, fine. So you will scrim online if you can get the scrims.
In a nutshell.
Ultimately, when it comes to playing, you're all going, obviously, you have to be in Australia.
Yep.
Because you are an host team.
Yep.
Affiliate organisation.
Yes.
In OS. So you have to be inside of OS. So you'll be bringing the 3 Europeans to Australia.
And
yourself.
I will
so the 4 Europeans to Australia. How's that looking though? If you don't mind me asking.
Exciting, actually. We were looking at a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it'll be leaking it, to be honest, but we're looking at moving to Perth.
Okay.
With the deliberate reason that it will allow us to also practice the rest of APAC, not on 100 ping.
Because Perth is in the
west of Australia.
Australia.
So it allows us to practice whole rest of APAC.
Australia's fucking massive.
It is. It is fucking big. Because like the East Coast guys get anywhere between 100 to 130, 140 ping.
To like Japan, Korea.
Southeast Asia. Brendo, who lives in Perth right now, he gets like 60 to 80 max.
Which is completely doable. Is
exactly.
Russians and that's Spaniards in Europe play on that.
And because Wet will move from East Coast to West Coast with us, the idea is that we'll be able to base ourselves there in a team house. Very nice places that we're looking over. Thank you very much, Shiju. And just generally, the scrim practice then we'll be able to get will actually also be of a higher quality than what we had in the previous stages as well.
Cool. So overall, it's all for a reason. It's higher quality practices. It's higher caliber players with that X factor. And ultimately I suppose the goal isn't just to return to being the best team in OS. It's actually to improve this team beyond that.
Yeah, if I want to sit here and say, oh, I want to be the best team in OS, I'd have kept the same Bliss roster.
Because you could have competed with Chiefs and got over the mental block and
No. I mean the one with Odah. We just never made a change.
Okay.
If that's where we wanted to settle,
you would have kept as the best team in OS every event.
because we've just been able to dominate.
But you
just
wouldn't have
keep ourselves
qualified.
close.
And this is for the reason that you want to. Because ultimately, I suppose, as of right now, you've not played a game, you're completely unproven. We don't know whether this is going to work or not. But the intention is there that you progress past that ceiling of being the best team in OS to being really competitive at an international level.
Exactly. I mean, my goals are not just win domestic titles. My goals are international events.
Okay. Well, on that nutshell, I guess we'll close out this podcast. Thank you for the insight, because I think that was honestly, brutally honest. There's going to be a lot there that I think will disprove some of the things that people have said or are saying or think or come to conclusions. And there's a lot of insight that's not in the public domain that now will be. So, thank you for that, and thank you for being brutally honest. I do wish you the best of luck in the world. It's going to be a fun task. And I'll enjoy watching OS more than ever when it comes to June and I'm sat there in Copenhagen watching it like, Creed is dropping a 20 bomb on Odah.
There we go.
Easy. Okay, so thank you, Titan. The best of luck. Thank you guys at home for watching. Make sure to tune in for the next one.